Game week 35 is here. There are only 4 game weeks left and I've gone down in rank by 400% in the last 2 game weeks. Let's hope I still know what I'm talking about with these transfer tips. Make sure you like and subscribe and let's get right into the video. Now I hope we all enjoyed game week 34. I personally did not. In game week 32 I was top 5k. Now I am 30k overall. It is not looking good, but guys, we are still out here trying our best and the comeback will be on. But that's a discussion for another video in my team selection. For now, we're talking about transfer tips, and first up we have the fixture difficulty rating. Now this double game week is still incredibly likely, 95% likely, especially because City just knocked out Southampton, which, you know, it came close, by the way. Southampton went 1-0 up, but now they've secured that win, I'm pretty sure this double will happen with Crystal Palace in double game week 36. So yay for me, the plans are still on. City are obviously at the top here. Outside of the double game week, they've only got average fixtures, but with how City played towards the end of the season, all they need is average fixtures. You know, if you look at their end of season run-ins with Pep over the last, 4 to 5 years, they win nearly every game. So owning lots of City players, especially with this run, you need to do it. Slightly below them, we have Leeds and Arsenal. Now Leeds, obviously their assets aren't sensational, but with this really easy fixture run, their assets will be sensational. It's just about picking the right ones, which we will discuss later. Then we have Arsenal. Now technically, in terms of who's got the easier run to actually win the league, it is Arsenal, but City are higher because they have more games. So obviously they have a better fixture run. I do think with Arsenal, it is tough to pick the right assets. Like, you've got so many, decent players, but no one amazing. And everyone's a bit of a rotation risk, but they did just pick up a couple injuries in Havertz and Eze last game week. So you never know, decisions could be made easier. But either way, their defense is still the best defense to target in the league, especially with this easy run of games. Slightly below Arsenal, we have Wolves. Now, Wolves played one of the easiest fixtures in the league. They played home to Tottenham and still did absolutely nothing. Maybe you could own some Wolves players in game week 38, but even then I still wouldn't recommend it. Let's stay away from those guys. I really like the Aston Villa fixture run short term. The next 3 games are still good. Even home to Liverpool, while it's not the easiest, Liverpool aren't the best defensively, so your Aston Villa attackers could still do quite well. And before that, they play home to Tottenham and away to Burnley. 2 sensational fixtures you want to own the likes of Rodgers and Watkins for if you can get them in your team. Slightly below Aston Villa is where you get, we're getting towards mediocre. Newcastle and Brighton have decent runs of games. No games that are really, really tough, and they do play against each other in game week 35. But there's also not a lot of incredibly easy games. I mean, Brighton do have home to Wolves, which I think is an amazing game week to own your Brighton players because home to Wolves is so easy at the moment. And the Brighton defence, in terms of underlying data, we'll talk about this a bit later, but they are the best for expected goals conceded across the last 8 game weeks. Something I did not expect to be saying, but they've really tightened it up at the back, and their position in the league shows that they're doing really well. Then below Brighton, we have Crystal Palace, who don't actually have a good run of games, but they have a double game week. And even though that double does include a game against Man City away, which is arguably the hardest fixture in the league right now, along with away to Arsenal, it's still an extra chance for minutes, for defcons, for a goal involvement. So their fixture run is still quite high up, but you'd only own them because they have a double, because even after the double, away to Brentford and home to Arsenal are 2 games that are quite difficult, especially with Arsenal probably pushing for the league in game week 38. They're not going to take it easy on Crystal Palace. Then we get to the mediocre area. I'm not going to talk loads about this. I sort of want to go down to Fulham and Brentford. Fulham actually have a really good run, but they play away to Arsenal in game week 35. But for the final 3 game weeks, it could be worth owning a player like Wilson or another attacker that's going to do well. It's hard to predict because you don't know who's going to start out the strikers and the midfielders, who's going to score. Sessegnon, Iwobi, Chukwueze. Sometimes you don't know, but 3 green fixtures in a row is 3 green fixtures in a row. Someone like Harry Wilson could be very good. And for Brentford, they play away to City and away to Liverpool in the last 4 games of the season. That's not good. But Thiago is an amazing striker, so the likes of Thiago could still be really good to own, especially with home to West Ham and home to Crystal Palace coming up. I would say with Forest, you could own Gibbs White, like the data's good and he's on really good form. And away to Chelsea, while it is a red fixture, let's be honest, Chelsea are on really bad form and they've just sacked their manager, so that could easily be a fairly easy fixture, which is why I think Forest assets like Gibbs White, I say Forest assets, only Gibbs White could be worth going for. Anything below, Spurs assets, West Ham, Burnley, Liverpool, you should probably steer clear if I'm being completely honest, especially with all those teams not being great at the moment. I mean, West Ham just won a game and Bowen's doing all right, but I've got a bone to pick with Bowen. He got 0.54 expected assists, got 2 assists from it. My differential, Somerville, got 0.78 expected assists. Didn't get a single assist, so I don't know what's going on with the West Ham players there, but they've let me down. They've only had their shooting boots on when Bowen's passed to them, which isn't fair on me. you know what, it is what it is. Anyway, yeah, that's my rundown of the fixture difficulty rating. Let's take a look at some players I think you should buy for game week 35. Now, talking about defenders to buy, obviously I normally always start at the bottom of the list, but I'm going to start at the top because Gahey is probably the best defender to own in game week 35 to help you see out the rest of the season, but he's not a top 3 Man City asset. Okay, I'm going to make that clear to you. Obviously, we have the blacklisted players in the top left, players that are too high owned to be recommended because everybody has them. There's 3 City players here: Haaland, Semenyo and O'Reilly, who I think are all better to own than Gahey. And don't get me started on Shirky, you know. Gahey is the 5th best City player to buy, and you can only own 3 City players. That doesn't change the fact Gahey is probably the best defender to buy of anyone I can recommend. So if it suits you, and you need to buy a defender and you've got a space for a City player, Gahey is your best guy to go for. But in general, I wouldn't recommend a lot of teams go for him. I was debating even putting him in this list, but technically I felt I should because he's still very good to own. Anyway, let's go back to the bottom. Now, Van Heck, he's good. I just mentioned they are the best defense in the league across the last 8 game weeks. The defensive data here shows Van Heck, he's not afraid of scoring a goal now and then, not afraid of getting an assist. His def cons are really good, averaging 10.5 per 90 across the last 8 game weeks. Away to Newcastle nowadays is not difficult. Home to Wolves is sensational. And away to Leeds and home to Man United, they're not great, so we may not see many points there, but it could happen. For his price, I think he's a really good defender to buy. Above him, we have Lacroix. Now, his data isn't great aside from def cons. Defensively, Crystal Palace are quite average. The expected goal involvements, they're not... he could score one. I doubt he's going to score one. But the double game week is there, so he's got more chances for points, more chances for def cons, more points for minutes than any other defender on this list, which makes him a player worth buying. Away to Bournemouth isn't the best entry point, but you could see that being a close game. Crystal Palace have been keeping the clean sheets recently, despite the underlying data not being sensational. They've proven they can keep people out, so could be a good player to own, but mainly for that double game week. Quick little interruption, I did record this video before the Leeds FA Cup semi-final, and I have now changed my mind on the Leeds defender I want to recommend. I think Rodon is the best one to own. He was subbed on in the second half, so I now believe he's going to be starting in game week 35, which means I think he's the best to go for. He's always been the safest for minutes, good for def cons, and a decent goal threat in the box. To be honest, it doesn't matter too much because like all the other Leeds defenders, you know, Bidgel, Bogle, Strag, they're all pretty good options, but I just think Rodon is the best one, which is why he's here. But most Leeds defenders that are reliable for minutes could be great options too. Anyway, back to you, Bodders. Then we have Saliba. Now, I do think Raya is a goalkeeper that a lot of people are going to own. I don't like recommending goalkeepers here because goalkeeper transfers are sort of a waste, but you know, going for Raya and Gabriel plus Saliba is a great triple up. Timber is still a rotation risk as of when I'm recording this. He's still injured, so I'm not going to recommend him, but he would be better. So the next best player I can actually recommend, aside from Timber, Gabriel and Raya, is Saliba. Saliba's not awful for def cons, but he has potential to get it. Obviously, the Arsenal defense is the best defense in the league. The underlying data across the last 8 doesn't show it. They've been on a bit of bad form, but that doesn't change the fact they've been the best across the entire season, and their expected clean sheets are astronomical levels above everyone else if you look at game week 31 to game week 34. Sorry, game week 1 to game week 34, not game week 31. You know what I mean. Across the entire season, they've been the best. Goal involvements aren't really Saliba's thing either, but you're looking at 6 to 8 pointers across, you know, the next 4 game weeks because Arsenal really need to lock in. This league could be won by goal difference, so Arsenal really need to do what they're good at and just keep shutting teams out. So I think you could see 4 clean sheets here from Arsenal. I'm not going to jinx it, and it's not definitely going to happen, but it definitely could at the same time. Into midfield now, there's not a ton of amazing ones, but I do think Saka is quite good. He's just come back in the squad. He is a bit of a rotation risk. He costs a lot of money. But in terms of looking at Arsenal attackers that can take advantage of this incredibly easy fixture run, Saka is really the only one that comes to mind. Every other Arsenal attacker is going to be an even bigger rotation risk than Saka. Saka and Gyökeres, they share penalties. Saka could take penalties. We don't know for sure. But if you're looking for a differential Arsenal attacker to take advantage of home to Fulham, away to West Ham, home to Burnley, I do believe Bukayo Saka is your guy. Just be careful with it. I don't think he's anything higher than a 6. Slightly above him, we have Morgan Gibbs-White. Like I said, away to Chelsea isn't necessarily really hard. And the Gibbs-White data is all right, but he is overperforming it quite a lot. So I wouldn't expect him to keep it up. Like last game week, he got 2 goal involvements playing against Sunderland. He had 0.2 expected goal involvement. So he was a little fortunate there, but then again, he's a player that plays nearly the full 90 every single game, and he's involved in a lot of what Forest do. So in easy fixtures, that sort of performance is going to come his way, which is why I think he's still a fairly good player to help you see out the rest of the season, especially with home to Newcastle and home to Bournemouth in the mix. Hey, it's me again, another quick interruption. Now we are talking about Leeds midfielders. I was debating between Okafor and Aronson in my last recording, but Anton Stark came back earlier than I thought, and Anton Stark is easily the best Leeds midfielder in my opinion. Despite Aronson and Okafor playing more advanced and Okafor having really good underlying data, he's got potential for defcons and he's good for goals and assists. Maybe not as good as the wingers like Okafor and Aronson, but he does get involved in the big chances and he's always on the pitch to 490 nearly every game, unlike the other two, which means instead of Okafor and Aronson being the best two Leeds midfielders to target, I now believe Anton Stark is the one to go for to take advantage of this amazing Leeds fixture run. I mean, just look at the next 4 games to help them see out the rest of the season. It is ridiculously good. Then we get into the players I think are really good to buy. We've talked about the Aston Villa short-term fixture run. You would need to sell Rodgers in game week 38 if you wanted points, but you never know. He could score a screamer from outside the box. The Rodgers data is actually quite good. The best it's been pretty much all year. Even when he was banging in goal after goal, he scored like 2 braces in a row. His underlying data wasn't that great, but now it's looking quite strong. 0.53 expected goal involvements per 90. Don't mind if I do. And with that data, he's playing home to Tottenham, away to Burnley, then home to Liverpool. 3 fairly good games for an attacker. But above Rodgers, we have Ryan Shirky. And now it's like Gahey. If you own O'Reilly, Semenyo and Haaland, which a lot of you might, you don't need to go to Ryan Shirky. I don't think going from Semenyo to Shirky is actually worth a free transfer. Now with me, I would still rather own Shirky. The underlying data is better. When he plays, City look a lot stronger as a team. And recently, he's been very reliable for minutes, whereas in the past, he's not. And his expected goal involvements per 90 is ridiculously high for his price. So I think if you don't have 3 City players already, he should easily be your #1 priority this game week. Like I said, if you already own 3, maybe don't go there. You could if you have plenty of free transfers to spare. But if you have Semenyo, it might not be worth it. I'm someone who had Semenyo, but I used my wild card and I brought in Shirky. The only risk with that is Semenyo is a lot higher owned, you know. If Semenyo does well and Shirky blanks and you're a Shirky owner, you're in big trouble. But if you're a Semenyo owner and Semenyo blanks while Shirky does well, yeah, you're missing out on points, but it's not going to kill your rank. So beware, there is some risk with this, but I do think he is better to own than Semenyo and once again, one of the best players to buy this game week. With the forwards, we're looking at some decent options, no one spectacular. Brobby is still here. He was supposed to be my super differential last game week. He did nothing except lose 5-0. But away to Wolves, still one of the easiest fixtures in the league. The next 3 games that follow aren't tough either. And he's still getting the expected goals and the big chances. So he could convert them. Normally he does. Recently he's not been amazing, but I think he'll turn that around. Above him, we have Thiago. The underlying data for Thiago is quite similar, except he's actually finishing the chances. We mentioned his fixture run earlier. Away to Man City and away to Liverpool isn't exactly easy. But if anyone from Brentford is going to score in those games, it is probably Thiago. Above him, we have Mateta, who is here. And by the way, this could be a really bad shout, okay? He's only started 1 game since he's come back. You know, he missed a bunch of games, came back, played as a sub, came off the bench, did quite well, scored a brace in one of the games, and he got his first start over Strand Larsen last game week. I do believe, this is my opinion by the way, I'm not guaranteeing this, I do believe he will be Crystal Palace's starting striker again for the rest of the season. Strand Larsen has not been scoring. He has not been doing what a striker should do, whereas Mateta has. So I think he's going to be Glasner's man for the last 4 game weeks of the season. I think he's going to be starting. But once again, I don't know. I'm not involved with Crystal Palace as the football club. I don't even know the kit man. So take that with a pinch of salt. I personally think he's going to be a good player to own. He's going to be all right. It's a 6 out of 10. If you want to use a Crystal Palace player to target that double game week, Mateta is probably a guy outside of the defenders who are going to get defcons like Lacroix. But that's just me. I could be way off. But I know for certain you wouldn't want Strand Larsen either way. Like, Strand Larsen has been so poor. And even Mateta off the bench has shown he can be a really good asset. So a fun little differential there if you want to take the risk. Oliver Watkins. Now, I've heard people say he could be a rotation risk. I don't see it. Like, yes, a busy schedule is quite worrying for any attacker because attackers get rotated. But if you look at Aston Villa and how they've lined up in the midweek, on weekends, in the Premier League and the Europa League, Watkins has started pretty much every time over the last few months. So I personally don't see Watkins being a huge rotation risk. Like, yeah, they have some easy games, you know. Would they rest Watkins for an easy game, like home to Tottenham or away to Burnley? Some are speculating that. But Aston Villa haven't guaranteed European football yet. Every game in the league is still really important. and he's capable of playing 2 or 3 games in a week. He's not some unfit fat blob, you know, he's capable, you know, he plays football every day. So I personally, once again, I don't think he's going to be a rotation risk, but even then, like 30 minutes away to Burnley is enough for a goal. But like I said, I don't think it'll come to that. Then we have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He won't be a rotation risk. He will get big chances. He will generate expected goals. He will have plenty of shots in the box. Will he score them? It's hard to say. Like, he's one of the best strikers in the league at getting in the right position. And you can't disagree with me there. Like, I know his points have been quite bad recently, but his positioning is sensational. The finishing is where he lacks, right? But if he's got his shooting boots on, you know, there's low pressure now. You know, Leeds seem pretty comfortable, like they're not going to get relegated. And they've got easy games, man. Calvert-Lewin, when he's got a one-on-one, he doesn't need to stress. So hopefully his accuracy and his power is going to be spot on and he's going to score some goals. I say hopefully. I'm probably not going to own him. Maybe I will in the double game week. I'm not too sure. But I still think he'll do well. Now, onto the captains for this week. I think there's 4 valid captaincy options. We're going to start with the differential one first in Ollie Watkins. Now, I don't think he is someone you should look to target. But if you're really chasing rank and you want to go differential, I think he's really the only option. Maybe Morgan Rogers, but Watkins is a lot better. The fixture is very good. Recently, he's been on great form in all competitions and the underlying data is there to back him up. But it is very risky when there's 3 more options that are a lot safer to go for and have been a great FPL asset across the entire season. So yeah, not much I have to say on Watkins. Like, he's definitely got a good fixture. The matchup is good, but it's very risky and there's other good options. Now, I actually think out of all the main captains, Gabriel is the 3rd best. He's got the highest points per game of any FPL asset this season, which in my opinion makes him the best FPL asset in the 25-26 season, especially when you look at how much he costs. When Arsenal keep a clean sheet, which is quite likely in game week 35, he doesn't just get 6 points. He'll come away with defcons or bonus points or a goal involvement, maybe all 3. We've seen it before plenty times this season. So even though it's a bit of a risk, like if he does concede, then that's his main source of points down the drain. But he does have avenues to go down and he is playing a very easy fixture. My only issue is like watching Arsenal play against Newcastle. Yes, they won 1-0 home to Newcastle, but they didn't deserve to, which is worrying because Newcastle are awful at the moment. They're not a good team. They've not done anything to show me over the last 10 games that they should be even close to beating Arsenal. But they were very close. It could have easily been a draw. So Arsenal really need to pattern up and find some good form. I don't think they're going to be scared playing home to Fulham, but they really need to buck their ideas up because I didn't think they were going to be scared playing home to Bournemouth, but they lost 2-1. So yeah, Gabriel, I still think he's really good, but I know a lot of people won't go here. I know I won't because there's better options, but he's another, you know what, he could probably be a differential like Watkins, but I do think he's a lot safer for points because he's got so many avenues to go down as a defender. Now, the next 2 plays are the 2 players everybody is going to split their captaincy between. This is a huge game week to get captaincy right. And as of right now, I'm finding it really hard to choose. First up, we have Haaland away to Everton. Now, away to Everton, it's not the easiest, it's not the hardest. Like, their defense is fairly strong, but it's not amazing. They've been known to concede lots of goals. They've also been known to keep clean sheets. My thing for Haaland is, despite him not being at his best recently, he has scored a couple goals in the last few games. He even scored a hat-trick in the FA Cup quarterfinals. He's been very strong. Along with that, like I said earlier, Man City see out the season really well. They score so many goals, they shut loads of teams out, and Haaland is obviously the main man to be scoring these goals. The one thing I see going against Haaland is that Shirky seems to be the main man when he's on the pitch, which could take away from Haaland a little bit, but it could also enable Haaland. We can't say for sure, but there's one thing that's not a doubt in my mind is that Haaland is an amazing captaincy option. I personally though, I don't think he's the best. I think he's second best just by a tiny bit. You may disagree with me, that's completely fine. But for me, there's not much data or info suggesting that Haaland is going to be a better captain than the one and only Bruno Fernandes. Now, annoyingly, I am recording this before the Brentford game and it's coming up before the Brentford game, so we don't know how he did in game week 34 until after this video. But since he came back from injury in the last 13 game weeks, game week 21 to game week 33, he's blanked twice. Only twice in 13 games, and he's got a lot of double-digit returns in that time. So, like, how can you go against him when you know you've got guaranteed points there? He's chasing the assist record, he's on penalties, on so many set pieces, and home to Liverpool is not that bad of a fixture for an attacker. Like, Liverpool defensively are not locked up at the moment. They're not solid, They do have a lot of motivation to, say, keep a clean sheet because their European football, their Champions League football is not secure, whereas Man United's is nearly locked up. So you could argue that will be an influential factor, but Liverpool versus Man United is one of the biggest fixtures in the Premier League, if not the biggest in history. So Man United aren't going to take their foot off the gas. And yeah, it's like I said already, the numbers in past games since Carrick's taken over, they speak for themselves. I think there's no way this man can dodge a return. He's like in the assists, in the goals, at least one of them nearly every game. And I think going without Bruno, it just puts you at a disadvantage. Even though Haaland's a really good option, Bruno's my guy. He's my man. He is probably going to be my captain for game week 35. Anyway, guys, that is it from me. Let me know what you think of my tips down below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I'm happy to debate in the comments. If you made it this far, you are greatly appreciated. And I will see you all in the next video.